Good afternoon. That time of the year again, huh? Yeah, as you know, there's a lot of work goes in. You know, the last 2.5 weeks, the scouts has been in town, spending a lot of time going over players and fixing the board, and ready for this week. It's the board is up, but I'm sure there's going to be some tweaking over the next couple of days once you sit in the room and look at more tape and look at it from the standpoint, wondering, do we have it right? I think we got it as close to right as the way we see it as it's going to be. There's not a whole lot that can be done that hadn't been done already, so that's where we are at this point.
Hey, Doug, when we talked in Indy, you said if a quarterback's there at 15, that's the easy choice. In the time since, you guys have traded for Case Keenum. How has that changed your approach to this draft looking at quarterbacks?
Well, the National Football League is a quarterback league, and Case has done a good job over the last couple of years, where he's been, and we needed a quarterback, and we was able to trade for Case. But that does not put us out the rim of picking a quarterback if it's one there that we like at 15. We don't know who's going to be there at 15. We got some guys that we do like, and if those guys are there, that's a discussion that has to be had, and I'm sure we'll come up, and that's a possibility that would happen. But it's also with a lot of other players in this draft that can help us. We'll look at it from that standpoint too. It all depends on the board, who's high on the board at that particular time. If that quarterback is the highs, and we got to pick, 9 out of 10 is going to be the quarterback. But if it's not, that's a discussion.
And how would you grade this quarterback class? Each guy, it seems like, has some hefty question marks.
It's no different than last year. When the 4 guys came out, they all was, I think everybody board probably was different than the next team board or what have you. And I think it's the same thing here. There's some guys that's, at the top, and then you got guys you move down that you don't think is at the top. And we've done the same thing with the guys that we feel that are top quarterbacks coming out this year. Everybody's now on the same page all the time, and that's where talking it out and discussion comes in and that. And we're still at that point talking about the guys and where you feel. When you got 18 to 20 guys in a room, the chance of 18 to 20 guys feeling the same way is slim and none. And we had those discussions.
Doug, you mentioned that the board is set and now you guys will do some refining. How many guys are in the room as you go through these next 3 days? Is it still the 18, 20 guys all talking? Have you kicked scouts out? Can you give us a little bit more refining of what goes on in these last 3 days?
No, I've been here going on 5 years now. We hadn't kicked the scouts out yet. We hadn't done that. But I can say this, the scouts be back in town tonight, and I'm sure between tomorrow and Wednesday, we still be doing some cleanup stuff. They just left on Friday, and they'll be back tonight. And the thing about here, I think the process, everybody wants to hear what everybody say in that room. Now on draft day, everybody's not in there talking about it, but before we get to that point, everybody got an opportunity to voice their opinion. I think that's what makes it so much better.
Doug, with regards to the offensive line, you guys added Eric Flowers in free agency. Do you think that the starting left guard on the team is on the roster now, or is this draft an opportunity to get that player?
It wouldn't be fair to say that he's not on the team. We did sign Eric Flowers to give him opportunity to play left guard. If he can do that, we have a left guard. But other than that, I'm not going to stand here and say he's not on the team. If we draft one, that's going to be the starting guy, because we don't know yet. We got to get him here first. And there's a possibility that we would draft a guy, whether or not he plays guard or a tackle. You never know. It all depends. It goes back to the board.
Doug, back in the Combine, you and Jay said that inside linebacker was a position of need for the team, but that was before the league announced that Reuben Foster would not be suspended for this season. Does that still mean inside linebacker is in play, or do you feel like because Reuben Foster is cleared to go for the season, that's not a position you guys will be looking at in the draft?
I think when you look at this football team, every position, actually, I think when you look at our team, just about every position on our team is up. It all depends on that player, no matter what position you play. So I think it would be unfair just to label one position that we set. I think I can go on the limb. It's one position that we say we feel pretty good, but that don't mean we won't draft one, and that's the boys up front on defense side of the ball. But if there's a defensive lineman in the draft in the right place for the right price, that's a possibility to add to the young guys that's already on the team.
Doug, you guys spend so much time over this process putting together the board, and then I think people have this idea in their heads that Thursday night it still is some kind of chaos in the room. What are the discussions like on Thursday night, or is it as simple as looking at the board and taking the top player on it?
No, because, we got the 15th pick at this time, and there's 14 teams in front of us. And you don't know what's going to happen. Things happen that you don't expect. I go all the way back to the Jonathan Allen draft. Everybody was talking about Jonathan going in the top 10 pick, where in our mind going into the draft, Jonathan Allen was not on our mind. But when we got to that point, it was an easy task to pick Jonathan Allen because we didn't expect him there. And we're in the same position here. You don't know what's going to happen, and we're in that position that after about the 10th pick, now you look at the board and you look at about 8 to 9 to 10 guys on that board that you really like, and you put them on the board and you see how they fall or where they go or what have you, and leave you with every time one go, you put another guy up there, to try to fill that position. And when you get to your 2 minutes out in your position, you start eliminating the guys that you have up there and decide, which way you're going to go.
A lot of edge rushers in this class. Just what kind of separates the pack? What makes a guy at the top of your board for that position versus some of the other guys who are maybe bunched together?
Well, the thing about players, we all know that from a media standpoint, we see the guys and we rate them from a different standpoint. I'm talking about the media. But when you spend a lot of time in there, you look at every game that they played, not only this year, but you look at some of the tape from last year, and you're trying to grade them from that standpoint. Some guys that look good on the hoof, did good at the combine, when you put the tape on, might not say the same thing. And you got to be cautious of what you're drafting. You want a guy that plays football and plays every play and make plays. You're talking about an outside rusher. That's what you want that guy to do. You want to be able to do. But in our scheme, he also has to be able to drop in coverage too. So you kind of mix it up both ways.
Are there any characteristics in terms of what separates a guy's tape from another guy, in terms of getting to the getting to the quarterback, getting his hand technique?
If he's the edge rusher, you give him a little more credit for getting to the quarterback. That's the whole objective, I goes back to, when I was in college, Coach Rob used to always tell us, every man is born equal to become unequal. And the same thing with guys. When you put them on that board, they all don't grade out the same. You kind of put them in a different class or a different area.
Doug, is there a scenario out there where you would envision trading up from 15? And if so, how far would you be willing to go? Is a situation where you might even try to get into the top 10?
Well, I've said all along, the chances of trading up is a lot slimmer than trading back. I think where we are and what we're trying to do here with this football team, we don't make a move either way. We got to work with what we have. We feel pretty good about that. But we got a chance to trade back. It all depends on who's there. If that trade back comes and whether or not you really like that guy and you want him on your football team, or you put yourself in a position to get a couple more draft picks and some other players that are out there. I'm going to go on the record and say that's a possibility that we won't trade up. But it's a great possibility we'll trade back if that opportunity came.
Doug, if you guys happen to, it all depends on who's where and that kind of thing, but what kind of characteristics do you guys look at in a receiver when you guys are evaluating and guys that you might feel is a good fit with you?
I think when you look across this league at this particular time, when you talk about a receiver, basically what we need and what we've talked about is what you call a go-to guy. And that guy, in tough times, no matter what the situation, he's going to be able to make plays for you. A tough guy who go across the middle, guys that are blocked for you, guys that want the football. You don't want them to be all the way divas, but you want somebody who wants the football. If they don't get it, you don't want them in the press saying they didn't throw me the football. You want them to be team players. But I think, we're looking for a guy that we know that when crunch time comes, he's going to be in the thick of it. I think that's the most important thing.
Doug, when you kind of going through and looking at your board and doing the things that you've done, there's a lot of things externally that are held as truths in this draft. This person will be here, this person will be there. Do you look at your board and sometimes say, what are these guys talking about? Do you?
No, we all sit there and do that. The possibility of who might be there, who won't be there. And I think all in our mind, we sit in there and we kind of pick who we're picking, who's going to be there for us in the first round, who's going to be there second round, third round, and the fifth round, and so on. But at the same time, you got to be real with yourself. What if they're not there? Then what you do? And I think that's what we do more than anything when we're just sitting in the room after we've probably been talking for 4 hours. You still sit there and you linger, you look at the board, and the board not changing, but you really don't know it's not changing. It seems like it started waving at you, and you just get tired because it's the same board you left yesterday and you're back at it today.
Doug, I know that in a draft you take the best player at the position where you're drafting, but is it fair to say that right now the defensive side of the ball is ahead of the offensive side of the ball, and the defensive side has a better chance next year to be a dominant unit?
When you say, what you mean, defensive players as a whole?
The whole unit, and the players also obviously as well.
If they're a strength, I mean, I think, when you're talking about defense, you got to put all the strength base right now in the front line. That's number one. We don't know. We still don't know at linebacker. We don't know at secondary. We don't know offense. So I think at the end of the day, if you just want to pick one position, you pick the D-line. Other than that, you can't say the defense is ahead of offense ahead of defense at this time.
Will you actually do mock drafts in your rooms, or do you guys do on yourselves to kind of see how things might play out?
We play around a little bit as a group. We give guys an opportunity to pick their first. Like this year, we got first 4 picks in the third round. And we sit around and give them opportunity to make their choices, the first 4 picks, and see where everybody's thinking is. Kind of give you an idea of what discussion over the last few weeks has gone, and what that player think, and what that scout thinks, and the other scout thinks, and see who's on the same page, who's thinking alike, or what have you. We do that.
Doug, obviously the draft coincides with how you guys view players on the roster. 2 guys on the roster, Ryan Anderson and Monte Nicholson. Questions about them and what their role will be going into next year. Where are you at on those 2 guys, and how does your perception of them right now affect what you may do in the draft?
Well, I think when you look at it, Ryan Anderson right now is a starting linebacker on our team. We had to play today. And I think that's the only way you can look at it. And if you look at the time that Ryan played last year, the number of times he played, and the impact, if you sit down from a percentage standpoint, the number of plays that he played, he was pretty impacted when he played. So we feel pretty good where Ryan is today. Monte Nicholson, he's got some things that he has to clean up, and we don't know. It's unfair to put him in anywhere right now until he take care of himself.
How do you evaluate a player like Marquis Brown, who has an injury that obviously is concerning, but should be ready for training camp?
The thing about it, we look at all players. We get information on all the players, not no one individual. So we look at all of them, and we judge them all the same as far as what the doctors and what the report come out.
How does the injury affect, not him specifically, but a player like that who has an injury? I'm just using him as an example.
You and I both know that injury plays a major role. Character and injury plays a major role to the players that you pick. And, I take my hat off to the scouts that's on the road, and the information that they come back with and what they find out. It makes you cringe and makes the young players understand that no matter what you do, somebody know what you do, and somebody going to tell on what you do and how you do it. So we found out a lot of information that they probably don't know that we know about them, not only from a standpoint of character, but also the medical standard, which that's what the combine is all about. We get all the medical stuff from the combine.
Doug, as you mentioned, the defensive line is considered, the best unit on this team. But, you also mentioned the scenario like Jonathan Allen a couple years ago where he fell. If a defensive lineman were to fall, a guy that was considered a top pick, if he were to fall to 15 or whatever you're picking at, would you
We got one on our team that we picked in the 5th round last year.
Okay. But
he was there in the 5th round where we had him up on the board. So it's one of the same scenario. A guy like that, you don't pass him up. Okay. So we're in the same boat. We're in the 5th round, and we look up on the board, and that was a player that we had up here. So obviously we thought a lot of that player. You want him on your football team.
Okay. Doug, you talked about the D-line is the best unit you've got on this team. Last year, pre-draft, you told us a few times we got to get better at running back. Is there a position group you're going into this draft saying we've got to get better? This is a talent deficiency?
It's a bunch of positions at this time, JP, that we got to get better at. And, you know, I think it'd be unfair just to name one, but I think it's also fair to give the defensive line a little credit for where they are. But I'm not going to sit here and say we got to get better at any other position, which we know